Jake dropped to his knees, shook the ringing from his ears, blinked, then leveled his weapon. Fucking assholes. This verbal eruption came from his best friend, Sergeant Eli Harris, as he dove behind a boulder barely big enough to cover his ass while rapid fire and mortar rounds continued to discharge in their direction. Any other time, Jake would have laughed at Eli's outburst. At the moment, he was too busy scoping the hills in front of them from behind his own meager refuge. Everything around them was drab, brown hills, brown sand, brown dust floating in the air. The enemy didn't fight in a uniform, and their garb was as colorless as the landscape, which made them hard to spot and twice as dangerous. In his periphery, Jake caught the flash of sunlight against hard steel. "Contact north, 200 meters, he shouted to his team. "Additional small RPG west." "Small RPG east, 150 meters and closing," Eli shouted in return while scoping the opposite ridge. Muzzle flashes continued as Jake grabbed his radio to call in and report the three-sided ambush and request air support. A lack of response signaled the radio was either dead or offline. He hoped it was only a momentary break in communication and not a sign that they were stranded out there without backup or communication while the enemy tried to turn them into Swiss cheese. Not for the first time did he wonder if they were really brave or just plain crazy. A bullet pinged off a rock behind him. He hit the ground, then belly crawled to a shelf of gravel that would give slightly better protection. Crazy mothers, he decided. Just fucking crazy as hell. Across the rocks and sand, flashes lit up the ridgeline. Jake again scoped the ridge and spotted a new cluster of insurgents in the bushes below. Any minute, the new arrivals would engage, and he and his men would be in a damn dogfight. In Afghanistan, the terrain was as much of an enemy as anything else. They had to get to a safer location, because sure as shit, these puny-ass rocks weren't going to protect them for long. He grabbed his radio again and pushed out a call for backup. Not knowing if his request had been received, he ran the options he'd learned in training through his head. The only way to get everyone back home was to keep fighting. He'd promised Eli's pregnant wife he'd get her husband home in one piece, which left Jake no choice but to retreat. In a split-second decision, as a mortar rocketed over their heads and exploded too close for comfort, he barked out the order to move. Lifting their rifles, they fired as a safety cover and sprinted toward the larger outcropping of boulders to the south, away from the contact and back in the direction from which they'd come. Private First Class Lieberman was the first to be hit. He went down like a stone. The silence and stillness from the young private sent a chill through Jake's heart. As he snapped out the order to keep going, he planned to grab Lieberman on the way to shelter. Eli got to Lieberman first. He lowered his rifle and bent to grab the private by the vest. An RPG flew over their heads and detonated. Shrapnel flew, embedding in rock, skin, bones, and worse. Jake flinched when the flash exploded. When he opened his eyes, both Private Lieberman and Eli were on the ground, bodies torn and bleeding, both still as death. The sounds of war rushed at Jake, and time stopped. A chill sliced up his spine. For a second, he could hear nothing but the pounding of his own heart. Then it all charged back like a speeding train. He looked at the bodies strewn about the sand. He couldn't hit pause or rewind. The shit was real. No man left behind. While bullets and mortars flew and shrapnel dug into the soles of his boots and feet, Jake ran to the fallen men and dragged them behind the outcropping of boulders. Crouched behind the rocks, Sergeant Bagley looked down. "Lieutenant, I don't think." "Good. Don't think. Shoot." Jake looked down to where his brothers in arms, in all ways that mattered except blood, lay looking up at him through sightless eyes. Eli was dead. Lieberman was dead. Anger tore through Jake and rattled his cage hard. His chest constricted and caved as he closed Eli's and Lieberman's eyes with his dirty fingers. Jake made a silent promise to Eli that he'd get the bastards that had done this to him and those who'd killed his brother as well. Knowing his promises didn't mean shit because he'd just broken the one he'd made to Eli's wife, he got back to work. He clicked on his radio and nearly howled with relief when it came to life. He repeated the call for air support and now a medevac.